there's any trace, any clue to the missing Beaumont children.
Just wait and hope and pray.
What if that had been my children?
Very dark. No one spoke about it.
Another person of interest who has never come up before.
Good evening and welcome to this 9 News special on what is the state's most baffling mystery. Tomorrow will mark 50 years since Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont disappeared from here at the Glenelg foreshore. We begin tonight with police reporter Ben Avery looking at the crime that robbed a nation of its innocence.
It started with a missing persons report at Glenelg Police Station.
Later in the afternoon, possibly 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, Grant Beaumont, the father of the children, came into the station to report that these 3 children had returned home from the beach.
Their mother Nancy had expected 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Anna and 4-year-old Grant to be home no later than the 2 o'clock bus. The children had never been late before.
The Beaumont people cannot be criticised for allowing their children to go to the beach, with the 3 of them together.
Jane was a very competent little girl, and she was like a mother to the other children.
When Grant Beaumont, better known as Jim, returned home to a worried Nancy at 3 p.m, he immediately began searching Glenelg. With no sign of their 3 children, they went to police.
I remember them as very, very distressed people, terribly distressed.
Police files show patrols immediately scanned the beach, waterways and local cinemas. Jim Beaumont contacted friends of Jane, Anna and Grant.
Nothing useful was found.
The disappearance of Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont shook Australia to the core and changed the way we live. Commentators and psychologists have described Australia Day 1966 as the day our country lost its innocence.
'60s Adelaide was a very different time. A time of blissful naivety shaped by a country town mentality. A time when no one thought twice about a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old taking a bus to the beach on their own.
It was really a sign of the times. I mean, you ask people back then, they'll tell you they went to sleep with their back door open, their front door open. People didn't lock their cars. We didn't have burglar alarms.
But on Australia Day 1966, that trust vanished, along with 3 innocent children.
We thought of ourselves as a sort of a dignified city, but with all the happiness of a country town, all the relaxation of a country town, and that was gone. Suddenly, you couldn't expect 3 young kids to be put on a bus just for a few minutes.
It was a massive wake-up call. It was almost like Adelaide lost its innocence. And so did Australia in a way, because this was a national story.
Every parent felt it could so easily have been their children.
What if that had been my children? What if we'd lost our 3?
And schoolmates, like musician Mark Holden, felt it could so easily have been them.
The Beaumonts literally lived around the corner from me, and I just feel like it could have been me, you know? It could have been me. I could have been that kid that was gone missing. And it wasn't unusual in those days for kids to go down the beach on their own, even that young. We all felt safe. Obviously we were wrong.
As the days, weeks and then months dragged on, one of the largest police investigations in Australian history significantly changed the way we viewed the world and watched over our children.
The penny dropped that maybe this was the end of the age of innocence for Adelaide. It really was the beginning of a new way of thinking for us all.
What it did, it made all parents sit up and take notice of the lack of security that might have been around their children and allowing them to do things that, on reflection, they shouldn't allow their children to do.
For years afterwards, I don't think people could actually believe this had happened, and especially not in Adelaide, which is back then very much considered to be a sleepy hollow.
But those newfound fears were justified just a few years later when 11-year-old Joanne Ratcliffe and 4-year-old Christy Gordon were snatched from Adelaide Oval in 1973.
To have another 2 children go missing 7 years later It reinforced to people times are changing, unfortunately, and you do have to be careful.
Paranoid parents became increasingly unwilling to let their children out of their sight. There's no doubt the unsolved disappearance has left a long-lasting impact, but detectives point out that had modern technology and policing techniques of today been available back then, it's almost impossible the 3 children could have vanished without a trace.
We've got CCTV, for example, at Glenelg. We have a very effective media where we could communicate with the whole population of Adelaide within a very short time. Social media, automatic number plate recognition. So if this case occurred today, it would be very unlikely that offender would get out of Glenelg with those children.
Regardless, Susie Ratcliffe believes the change in attitude hasn't been a bad thing.
People are becoming a lot more knowledgeable and are implementing, ways and means of staying away from those people or, reporting it to the police.
And tomorrow she wants all parents to mark the anniversary by speaking to their children about the danger of strangers and lighting a candle to ensure that Jane, Anna and Grant Beaumont are never forgotten.
Just to remember 3 beautiful lives that were cut short, to remember the family that have been left behind, to realise that they've gone through a lot of pain and anguish over the 50 years, and to remember how lucky we are to be able to hold our own children tight and know that they're safe in our arms.